All right, so you're a West Coast swing dancer trying to master West Coast swing. In this video, I'm gonna give you the 11 patterns that everyone needs to know for West Coast swing. What's up, gang? It's Brian B.
And Miss Megan.
From West Coast Swing Alliance. So we're gonna walk through your 11 patterns. We're gonna give you the things that the followers should think about and the leaders should think about, and also a way to think about these patterns. So we're gonna lay them out in a very interesting way, not necessarily the way we teach them in a group class, but a good way to think about West Coast swing. So the first one, of course, is the push break or sugar push. Fun fact about this pattern, its technical name is the push break, but for some reason a lot of us call it the sugar push. The sugar push technically is with the sugar foot, so there's your history lesson. Things I need to think about as the leader: don't be too big with my footwork and don't pull with my hand. A small step back will suffice. I keep my hands in front of me so the follower has less distance. For the followers,
you want to make sure that you give connection in towards your partner on the 3 and, so that they are able to lead you back on 4, 5, and 6.
So you're going to close that distance as quick as possible. And leaders, I'm not going to pull my hands behind my body.
That makes us not,
because it makes it harder. Cool. So that is the push break or sugar push pattern number one. The second one is off of a push type pattern, is the sugar tuck. And this is one that people mess up quite a bit. Here's what I need to do as the leader. The fact that I can raise my hand alone helps bring my partner to me. So as I'm stepping back, I'm raising this hand, 1, 2, 3, and pro tip, my fingers are gonna go the direction. So I don't wanna do this flat, I wanna start to curve my fingers that way. Stepper on count 4. There's a moment here Megan's gonna talk about as we anchor across her head, but for the followers.
Count 4 is very important for us. So we have 1, 2, 3, and. On count 4, you're gonna feel like, oh, I just need to turn. And then you go under your own arm. Guess what? They're not leading you anymore. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to stay connected to this hand, and I'm only going to go as far as that hand takes me until they go over my head for 5 and 6.
Bingo. So there's your second pattern. Those are your two key push type patterns. Now we're going to go into the side passes. We're going to work off the left side pass first. I always say the left side pass tells the truth, meaning I can tell how good someone is just by what this left side pass feels like. But from a leader's perspective, what I want to do is I don't want to drag this hand. I just want to maintain constant connection and just guide my follower down the slot. So from Megan.
Followers, we do not want to be past our leader by the first 2 counts. We want to stay this direction of them. So we have 1, 2. Now on the 3 and 4, we get to pass them. 3 and 4. 5 and 6.
And that is a good rule. Almost never will you as the follower be past me on the first 2 beats. You're going to see this as we go along. On the first 2 beats, Megan is on this side of me. She passes on the 3 and 4, anchors 5 and 6, because when we do the spinning side pass, or what we call the inside turn, 1, 2, she's on that side before she passes. So there's a couple things that we want to get right on the inside turn. And that is for the leaders. We're a lot of times taught in group class to prep both steps, and although I even do that socially sometimes, it's not necessary. The goal is to prep the second step, and Megan's going to talk about what she does there before we fire the turn. So Megan, can you talk about that prep?
Yes, so we have 1, 2. I want to make sure that I fill this connection in, and then it'll be much easier because our right side is back to do the turn for 3 and 4. 5 and 6.
So as the follower, you're trying to fill this out. Leaders, I'm going 1. I'm giving a little bit of space, just a little bit. Megan's filling that out rotationally. And then watch this. As I step back onto my right foot, that's what fires the turn. I don't need to use my hand to pull. My left foot stepping back. 1, 2, stepping back is what actually fires the turn. So that is your number 4 is your inside turn off of your left side pass. Then we have the right side pass, or we also call the underarm turn. So that's the basic. That's the one that when you can't think of the next move, you're just going to lead a lot of right side passes. But if you didn't do it incorrectly, you're going to bop your follower on the head, and we're going to talk about what Megan needs to do to not get bopped in the head.
All right, so followers, we're going to go 1, 2. If we stay very straightforward, this is a very long way to go over our heads, and sometimes they may not make it. All right, so we're gonna turn as we go. So we have 1, 2, we're gonna start to turn 3 and. That way you're flat to each other or parallel to each other, and then 4, 5, and 6.
So if we look at it this way, followers, I would teach the followers to almost look where you came from. If Megan starts to look where she came from, she's going to pass me what we call skinny or sideways, right? As opposed to her passing me wide, and then I have a long way to go, and you'll see that look in group classes. So don't do that on your right side pass. But the other move from a right side pass that we think is essential because it develops a skill is this outside turn, right? This is where you get some of these cool moves from. It's an outside turn for the follower from a right side pass. So if you kind of look at this, we're nesting sugar push, sugar tuck, right? Left side pass with a turn. Right side pass with a turn. So for this one, I'm going to spin Megan here so she can get to the other side and talk about the footwork. But leaders, what I want to do is almost lead this like a whip, which we're going to talk about in a second. 1, and I pull her back for 2, so she's backwards. Notice she's not past me yet. Then she goes 3 and 4. There's that count 4 from the sugar push we talked about. Anchor step. So Miss Megan, can you talk about the follower's footwork through that?
Yes. Followers, we are going to go forward, turn, back.
That hand has to be up, by the way, leaders. Quick flip. Fingers go in the direction she's turning.
We are going to be following this hand very carefully for 3. It's going to turn us around, and 4. This is just like the sugar tuck where we want to keep this elbow tucked in, and then they will go overhead 5 and 6.
And as we get to pattern 11, you're going to see why that's super important. You're going to need that moment. So we're kind of building something. So that is the outside turn. Now we have the 8 count pattern, the whip. So this is the one that screws everyone up in beginner class because everything has been 6 counts. But the next chunk of patterns are all 8 count patterns. So the whip, things I need to think about. 1, 2. I do not want to go what I call negative on 2. That'd be a super common problem. So with my footwork, I either go back and cross, I can go back and together, I can even go back and side, but the concept is more important, that I don't cut my follower off on count 2. So that's the main thing I would think about as a leader. 1, 2, I like to catch her here. We send her back for 3, and Megan's going to talk about that in a second as I step across for 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we've got a cool thing for the whip. Megan's going to explain it.
All right.
Cool whip, Megan. Get it?
Cool whip. There we go. So we have 1, 2 on 3, and we are going to go 3, and we want to make sure that we put our heels down, followers, so that we stay nice and connected to this hand that's on our back.
And that's what's going to make this whip be stretchy and swingy across the side, is there's a delay there with the anchor. There's an acceleration and a delay there, and then there's an acceleration back across, right? And you'll get that provided the leader doesn't cut the follower off and run her into a clothesline whack, right? And then as the follower, you're staying on that side of me for the first 2 beats, right? Megan's not completely past me yet, so she has enough room to go back and connect into this hand before we step across 6, 7, and 8. So that is your whip. Now, number 8 is a whip with an inside turn. So these are the branches of the tree. We're in the whip. Now we have a whip and we turn one way and a whip and we turn the other. That's why we gave you these 11 patterns. If you can do a whip and turn this way and that way, all the other patterns are going to flow from that. So whip with an inside turn, this is like the first thing that I learned that wasn't baby beginner. I remember leading that a lot because it's very easy to do. So all I need to do for the leader's perspective, 1, 2, 3, and she's connected back here. I start to get this hand ready where I look at my watch for count 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Let's look at that from the other side. And then Megan can talk about what she thinks about. 1, 2, 3, and I now am able to switch my hand as I step across for 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I bet Megan's going to talk about stuff she's already talked about. Let me see if I'm right.
All right, we're going to talk about count 4, but really 3 and 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, and. The more that we are connected back into this hand, it'll tell us how far we can go forward. So on
Let's
count
do the
4,
example of how far you shouldn't go forward.
Cool.
Boom. Not good, right?
There's no space there.
But if Megan stays connected to this hand, I can look at my watch and then still lead the inside turn. So you're going to stay connected back to this hand, and Megan said that's going to create the space and the time. It's also going to tell you when we're going to get to the next pattern, which is number 9, the whip with the outside turn. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Whoa, the hand goes different. 5, 6, 7, and 8. And there's two things that we've already talked about I want you to pay attention to. 1, 2, 3, and she's connected back. This gives me the opportunity to change that hand because Megan's connected there, right? So as I step back, remember the pro tip, my fingers are going that direction. As I step on 4, 5, 6. Remember that moment there? There's a moment where Megan's not going to go to her own arm as we anchor step, and we're going to get to that in the 11th move. So things you think about. Please talk about spinning slowly.
So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Followers, count 5 is normal. Normal whip, count 5. All we're doing is a half turn for 6, and then 7 and 8. It is not fast.
So again, more than this pattern is cool are the moments within it that you can develop your skill set that will let us as leaders lead cooler and cooler patterns. So speaking of the whip, we have a whip with an inside turn, we have a whip with an outside turn. What else must we have? A reverse whip. Just because if we go one way, we should go the other. So the reverse whip, or the cutoff whip, I've heard it called, the follower turns the opposite direction, right? The normal whip, she turns towards me. The reverse whip, we think this is a super important one, is she turns away from me to get to the other side. So let's talk about that. Leaders, I need to almost prep her one slightly in. Remember we talked about that slight rotation? With that little prep, Megan fills that out rotationally, so when I pull this hand across, 3, and there's that moment again from the whip, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Let's look at it on the other side, because I want to talk about what I do with this hand. As Megan's turning, I want to put my fingers down her spine and then let it slide there. What she's going to do with that arm, can you talk about that hand?
I can. So followers, anytime that they are going to put their fingers in your back, you are going to sneak up over their arm with your elbow. Not the hand. But
the elbow.
And not the elbow.
Ask
Just
my friend
sneak
Tooth why.
it over.
So we have 1, 2, 3, and that elbow comes right over, up and over. There's that same position for the whip. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Before we get to move 11, I just want to explain to you that you already now have the skills, because if I can do a reverse whip, 3 and I'm in this position, I can do a reverse whip with an inside turn. This is how I make my living with group class. I take the same moves and we just add different things, and it takes people like 3 years before they figure out, hey, I already know that move. But if you know these 11 patterns, you'll be able to decipher all the different moves you're going to learn in group class and all the rest of our videos. So that's the reverse whip. What's the final one, Miss Megan?
Rock and go.
The rock and go. So I'm going to give you an example of a rock and go off of something we already used. Rock and go. Triple step. Here's another one. We could do a whip, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, rock and go. Triple step, 7, and 8. So what is a rock and go? And I put this at the end because it's not a move, but it's an essential thing that if you know, it can uncover a lot of the patterns. What simplest form, if we use 2 sugar pushes, normally I'd have to go 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6, and then do it again, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. Take me 12 beats. If I did both those patterns and bypass the anchor step with a rock and go, this is not the coolest way to do it, it's just the easiest way to understand. 1, 2, 3, and 4, rock and go, triple step, anchor step. Let's count that out. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8, 9, and 10. So 2 sugar pushes only took 10 beats because we bypassed the anchor step. Here's another example. If I did a whip, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, then an inside turn, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. 8 plus 6 is 14. I want to do it in 12 beats. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, 9, and 10, 11, and 12. So what you're doing is bypassing the anchor. Keys to this are, I want the follower to always anchor. 1, 2, 3, and 4, anchor and fill out that connection, right? If I do the whip, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, anchor and fill out that connection. If you do, that's going to allow me 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6 to give you a little bit more rock and go, and take you out into count 2 of the next pattern, inside turn in this case. So what would you think about as the follower to be able to read a rock and go?
So like Brian already said, we want to make sure that we always try to anchor. If a hand is on our back, that means get to the most connection that you can in that. So if his lead goes further, so does your step, which will lead you into that rock and go.
Bingo.
Same thing if you're just in 2 hands. If it goes further, oh, we're doing the whole thing.
We're doing the whole thing.
If it goes further, so does your step.
Oh, there's another rock and go. Triple step, rock and go. So you see it can be
Go on forever.
endless. All right, speaking of endless, there is an endless set of patterns over on our website, westcoastswingonline.com. You can click here. They're all broken down level by level, so no matter where you're at, it'll tell you exactly what to learn next. And if you want to learn the 10 most essential techniques to mastering West Coast Swing, you should watch this video right here.